Hi, it's Lucy and today I'm here to do a video on my 2020 reading stats. Every year I do a video like this. I keep a spreadsheet where I document everything that I read and also everything that I buy. This year I was a lot better about that, so I will be talking about things that I bought this year book-wise in this video. That'll be towards the end. The reading spreadsheet that I use is made by Brock from Let's Read. I will link the one for 2021 down below. My stats include some things that are not included in that spreadsheet because I added some other things that I wanted to keep track of. But yes, I love data because I'm a nerd. So I love doing this video every year and hopefully you find something interesting in this video. I'm gonna do that cliche YouTuber thing right now and ask you to subscribe if you haven't already. Yeah, without further ado, let's get into the stats. I'm gonna move over here so that I can have space to put the graphs and stuff because this spreadsheet does include graphs, which I love. Also, if I'm looking down at any point during the video, then it's because I'm looking at my computer to get the stats. The only goal that I'm going to talk about is my reading challenge goal, from Goodreads, and that was to read 100 books, and I did read exactly 100 books in 2020, so it makes these stats really easy. Let's start with the number of books that I read per month, and then we'll just go from there. I'm just going to be hopping around the spreadsheet, pulling out things that I think are interesting. So my highest reading month was actually June. I truly don't know how I did that because June was a hard month for me, as it was for a lot of people in the Black community. So I really don't know what I was doing. I think most of these are graphic novels though, but yes, June was my best reading month. My worst reading month, quantity-wise, I'm referring to, is a three-way tie. In September, November, and December, I read 5 books each in those months. Page-wise, my best reading month was in August, which was my second best book-wise reading month. I read 12 books in August and I read 3,206 pages. In June, my best number of books reading month, I only read 2,745 pages, which once again goes along with my idea of only reading graphic novels basically that month. Also, on average, I read 8.3 books per month, which sounds right to me. In total, I read 27,676 pages, and on average, I read 2,306 pages per month, which averages out to about 76 pages per day, and means that I would have finished about a book every 4 days. Let's talk about the format of the books that I read. I mostly read audiobooks. I read 46 audiobooks in 2020. The next highest was graphic novel, which was 15, so that's a big discrepancy. And then we have uncorrected proofs, which goes between ebook and physical ARCs that I have. And then it's ebooks, and then I guess physical books make up 15 also. Hardcover is 9, trade paperback is 6. And to go along with that audiobook stat, I ended up listening to about 380.24 hours of audiobooks, which is about 15 days of reading or listening. The majority of the books that I read were novels. The next number is graphic trades, and the other ones are kind of negligible, but that makes sense. I mostly read novels. I read 2 anthologies last year, apparently, which makes sense. I can't remember what one of them was though. And of the books that I read last year, there's a condition thing. 59 were from the library. 7 of the books were books that I purchased myself in 2020. 11 were books that I either purchased or got for free in previous years. And then 6 were books that I somehow got for free, but weren't ARCs, I guess. And then 19 were ARCs. For places that I got the books, once again, library wins. But then after that, we have NetGalley and Amazon are tied, which I don't love. Also directly from the publisher. I don't know, all of that makes me feel weird, but that's information for everyone. The majority of books that I read were fantasy. The next majority was contemporary. The difference is a lot. I read 34 fantasy books and 22 contemporary books. This is very interesting to me because I've always considered contemporary to be my favorite genre, and fantasy is winning here. I expected this to be more even between sci-fi and fantasy because that's how it usually is. I read contemporary first and then sci-fi and fantasy second. But yes, it's also possible that over the years I've gotten more specific about the genres that I include. My least read genre that I actually read one of was self-help, which is a stark difference from last year, I think, because last year I was really going self-help wild. I was reading all the self-help books that I could get because I needed help. I still need help, so I should really get back to those self-help books. So that's very interesting to me. I also want to mention that I did DNF one book. I don't think I included that one book in the page count. I also reread 5 books, and all the rest of the books that I read were just new reads. The majority of books that I read were between 300 and 399 pages. there were 32 books that fit under that. The next majority was 200 to 299. I'm pretty sure the graphic novels really helped with that. Same for 100 to 199. I read one book that was 600 to 699 pages. The longest book that I read was Layer of Dreams, which was 613 pages. The shortest book that I read was The Cleaners by Ken Liu, which I have a reading vlog of. You can check it out in the description box. Most of the books that I read were 2020 new releases. This is the first year that's ever happened. Obviously, it's the first year I've read books from 2020, but it's the first year that I read the most books from that year, if that makes sense. I read 33. The next most was 2019, where I read 21, and then 2018 got 12, and then 2017 got 8, and then everything else got split up. There were 4 books in the 2000s. There were also 7 books in the 50s, which makes less sense. I do not even know what most of those books were. So that's very interesting to me. 41 books I read were part of a series, and 56 books were standalones. In total this year, I started 10 series. I continued on in 15. I caught up in 4, which means that I read up to how much I could read, but the series has not ended. And then I completed 4 series, and then I DNF'd 7 series, which I'm planning to do a video about the series that I DNF'd and finished in 2020. Next, we have the ratings of the books that I get. My average star rating was 3.7 stars, which I feel like is pretty good. I kind of thought it was going to be lower, but I did give the majority of books 4 stars. I gave 51 books 4 stars, so that's something. And then the next majority was 3.5 stars, which is how it should be. I really wish the 4.5 and 5-star numbers were higher because, you know, I want to love the books I read, and right now I'm not. Next, we have some things about the content within the books and also the authors. So, author gender, the majority of books that I read were by female authors. I read 2 books by non-binary authors, and then I read 18 books by male authors. As for protagonists, for protagonist gender, 65 of the books that I've read featured a woman as a protagonist, and 8 of them featured a man as a protagonist, which lines up with me mostly reading books by women. Not saying that women can only write their gender, but it just tends to be that people write their own experience in that aspect, at least. And I should say cis women because I only read 1 book with a trans woman protagonist, and I did not read any books with trans men or a trans man as a protagonist. So I would like to work on fixing that. 2 of the books I read had non-binary protagonists. Also, to go back to the authors, the majority of books I read were written by authors from the United States. That's another thing I'm looking to fix. I made a goal about it in my 2021 goals video, if you're interested. My next most read was the UK, and then I read 2 books from Japan and Nigeria, and 1 book from France, which I also don't remember. Next, we have the diversity of the books that I read. These are based on what's featured in the book, and also diversity is a broad thing. I try to do the best that I can, but obviously I'm gonna be missing some things. It's really hard to quantify this kind of thing, but it's just for me to keep track and to know what I'm doing. So 33 of the books that I read featured race as an aspect of their story. 6 LGBTQIA, 1 featured mental illness. 31 featured combo, which means that the protagonist or whatever the book was covering featured multiple of these, which is why certain numbers of these seem so low, because I'm pretty sure that LGBTQIA plus books that I read more than 6. But a lot of them featured characters who were maybe other races or were dealing with mental illness or something like that. So it gets put under combo, but I did also separate that out. So we'll get to that in a second. Because I just mentioned it, let's do the LGBTQIA plus rep. The majority of books that I read with that rep featured queer rep. This I used, it is an umbrella term, but I did use it also as an umbrella term specifically in this spreadsheet. So if this is a book about 2 characters and one of them is a lesbian and one of them is bi, it went under queer, because otherwise I felt like I would be erasing one of them. So those went under queer if maybe the character didn't state their specific sexuality, but I know that they're a boy, they have a crush on another boy or something like that. I put them under queer because they didn't state it, so I can't know. All the other numbers seem really low, but in the end, I read 32 books featuring LGBTQIA plus rep, which I would like to see go up, but that is almost a third, so I'm happy with that right now. And to go with author race, because once again, this is like a hard thing to quantify because not everyone announces their race, and I do like cursory research to see if they did announce it or say something, and to see what they look like, although you can't tell what everyone is based on what they look like. This is valuable, and also just for me, I'm not sending a list of authors to anybody. So 32 of the books that I read were by Black authors, 51 were by white authors, 7 were by East Asian authors, 3 were by South Asian authors, 2 were by Middle Eastern authors, 3 were by Latinx authors, and 2 were by mixed authors. And overall, to go finish off the diversity section, I guess, 57 of the books that I read were own voices, and 43 were not, which satisfies, I don't know if this was an actual goal that I made, but it's like a general goal that I always have to read majority owned voices works, and I did that. Next, quickly, because I feel like this video is very long, let's just talk about acquisitions. Normally I don't talk about what I buy or how much I buy, mostly because I'm really bad at keeping track, but this year I actually kept track meticulously because I was doing that book buying budget. I just wanted to share. This is not in any way to brag or anything, I'm just sharing stats because I like stats. So this year I set myself a $300 book budget and I spent $284.76. So I came in under. I'm very happy with myself for that. The majority of books that I bought were also fantasy, which goes along with the books that I was reading. I think that's very interesting. And I mostly bought hardcover books, which I also think is very interesting because I did not mostly read hardcover books, but I also prefer hardcover books when I buy books. So I feel like if I'm going to spend money on it, I'm probably going to buy a hardcover. And in total, I bought 17 physical books and 3 digital books. I mostly bought YA books. On average, I bought 2 books a month. And of the books that I bought, so of that $284.76 that I spent, I read about $123.05 of it, so about half of them. My busiest month for book buying was February, where I bought 5 books. I don't know why. I don't even remember what they were. My busiest month actual cost-wise was August because I spent $67, and that is when I bought those Owl Crate editions. I feel like that should be more because I spent more than that. Oh, you know, and I also calculated the Owl Crate editions a little differently because those books do come with other stuff. So I didn't take the actual cost of the box. I did some weird math to try and evaluate a cost of just the book for this spreadsheet. So I guess if I included all the tchotchkes and things that I got in those, it would have made me go over, but being transparent. And I bought the majority of my books from Amazon, which not proud of. Those are all the statistics I have to share with you guys. I hope it all made sense. I'm happy to share them with you. Let me know what was either the most surprising statistic that I shared or what is one of your most surprising statistics if you do something like this. Once again, the spreadsheet is linked down below. Not my exact one because like I said, I made changes to it, but you can get the basic of it, which is very detailed, by the way. It's not really that basic. It'll be linked down below. If you made it this far into this video, leave me a graph emoji. And thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you like my channel and want to see more, be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell so you can be notified whenever I post a new video. All my social media is linked down below in the description box. And again, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye!